My name is Joshua, and I'm the Tribune. Whew. Whoever's watching this, you should be exhilarated. You should be super excited. I am ecstatic right now because I'm going to give you guys God's treasure map. This is going to blow everything out of the water because this is the secret of God's generals. Now, before I even go into this, you need to pause this video if you're not a Christian. You need to go down to the description and you need to accept Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. Because everything I'm about to say about God's treasure map, you cannot even hear it if you're not a believer. It won't make any sense to you, even if I tell you. This is the mystery. So I want to make sure that anybody who's watching this can actually hear me or even come into somewhat consciousness about it, because you need the Holy Spirit living inside of you to understand this. Now, God's treasure map. What is a treasure map for, really? Why do we have treasure maps in our world? Like, when you think about the pirates and you think about anybody who has a treasure map, it's because they buried it somewhere that they don't want anybody to know where it is, to protect it, and nobody can find it. So, and even they need to remember where it is. So they have a treasure map. And just in case something happens to them, it's a bartering tool. They can actually pass this on to somebody else. There's so many things you could do with a treasure map. It's actually currency, a treasure map is. Now, of course, for all these people who say, well, what if it's not currency, because what if there's actually no treasure there? No, absolutely not what I'm saying. We're talking about God now. So there's absolutely treasure there. So if you have a treasure map, you have the treasure. But the difference is when you open up a treasure map in our world, there are scribbles and lines and dotted lines, X's, all the cliches. X's, there's like little signs like, okay, there's an elephant that looks like a rock that looks like an elephant over here. And when you hit that, turn left. I mean, there's all that kind of stuff. And it's coded. And even with humans, you pretty much have to have the person who designed this treasure map to go and find this treasure. So how much more so do you need God with his treasure maps? In fact, the truth is that his treasure maps, when you open it up, is totally blank. When you open it up, you know what's looking back at you? Him. And he's smiling back at you saying, time to get to know me. And your relationship with me will lead you to the treasure. My buried treasure that is beyond anything you can ever imagine. That's the kind of treasure he's talking about. That is tailored to you. This is something that I haven't really mentioned too much in these videos, which I have to say before I even talk about God's treasure map. The treasure he's going to give you is completely tailored to you. So much so that I argue he has been getting you ready and tweaked since you were a child, preparing you for your treasure so that you have the perfect taste to fully enjoy your treasure exactly how you're supposed to. What is treasure to certain people? What happens if I find a treasure map and that map is somebody else's treasure and I look at that map and think that my treasure would be their treasure? And so I go on this long journey. I travel the seas. I'm going through affliction. I am starving in the wilderness. I am dealing with enemies, anxieties, fears. I'm going through all this stuff with somebody else's treasure map, thinking that when I get to this treasure, I'm going to find what I think is treasure. But then when I open it up, there's a bunch of stuff that I don't care about, that this person thought was so valuable that they bury it somewhere halfway across the world. Can you imagine doing that? Well, that's really what you're doing if you are not a believer and you're not operating with God. Because He will make sure that your treasure map is tailored to you. Now, we're going to put some parentheses in that. Because there's certain things that are tailored to you that if you don't do them, He will reassign it and make sure it's tailored to somebody else. But first, it will come to you. You will have an opportunity. And really, this video is an opportunity for you to start stepping into this. So please take it. Now, when we're talking about God's treasure map, we need to understand that we need relationship. I covered that already. The next step with this treasure map is to understand that He will give you blueprints to prepare for this treasure that you are going to receive. This is really important because if you get to your treasure and you go through this process and you're not prepared for the treasure He's going to give you, then what are you really going to do with that treasure? You can't do it. You can't do it. What are you going to do with it? You're not prepared to receive the treasure? So what God will do is the relationship you have with Him will also prepare you to receive the treasure that you're going towards. That's tailored for you. Now let me explain to you in practical terms what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a treasure map. God hides things. He puts camouflage over it that nobody can see unless He wants them to see it. This comes in forms that you couldn't imagine. Now, I'm going to prove to you that this is true in practical terms. There are certain things that the world calls evil that is evil, but God has allowed that evil to guard something beautiful inside so that nobody will have the guts to go for it because of their reputation of even thinking they'd be associated with treasure connected to that thing that everybody thinks is so bad, which it is. But that's part of how He protects His treasure. Now, I can tell you these things, but you still, if you don't have a relationship with God, you cannot find this. Another way that He makes a treasure map and hides His treasure for you is He makes it completely invisible. He buries that treasure in things that you would never even stop to take a second glance at. Whew, this is really crazy. Because if you think that you can just go and find this place that looks like there's going to be treasure inside and that's God, that is absolutely not God. Most of the time, that's Satan. You know why it's Satan? Because he wants you to look at exteriors and fall into traps. So, when you're going toward your treasure with God, it's important to remember, as generals and as builders, that He will actually show you things that don't look like treasure. And if you don't understand His character that He does this, you will just take that hiding place and ignore it, not knowing that there's everything in there for you that would change your life completely. These are the two things He does. This is why it's very important to have obedience and have a relationship with Him, because He will tell you which things are treasure and where He's hiding it for you. Now, if you try to do this without God, it's going to be a total disaster for you on both sides. Because you're going to just, first of all, the first one, where He hides it around things that look bad to us, but inside, past all that wickedness, is Satan's treasure. He wants to actually excavate, melt down, and build back up. Way better. If you try to do that, you will get caught in so many traps along the way because you don't have the wisdom and the insight to go through all of Satan's booby traps. You don't have that. You have to be friends with God. You will try to do this and get so clouded on your first tiny 2 steps that you won't even make it close to the treasure on the inside, because that's God's hiding place. So you can't do these things without God. The second one, if you try to do this without God and you just want to just take a treasure map, listen to this video and say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove him I can do this, and I don't need God to do this. God's not real. I'm just going to go do what and if you think that you're going to do it without God and you're going to follow this video, that means you're saying God does exist and he's powerful. And you want to try to go against that, you need to align with power. You need to align with him. Stop saying that he's not real when you're listening to this video, and then you're going to say, I can do that without God. Well, that's saying that he is there, and you're now trying to oppose him. Now he will really frustrate you. So, but if you try, let's just say if you tried to do this without God, we're talking about the treasure that is hidden in places that don't look like they're hiding places. Very basic, mundane things. You will try to turn over everything you can, and God will let you turn over 1,000 rocks in 20 years, and you will come to the end of your life and have no treasure, because there are billions of rocks in the area. And he will just, you won't even touch the surface of how many stones there are, because you think, oh, if it's mundane, I'm going to look at everything. Well, you're going to waste your whole life. This is why you need God, because you need discernment of which rocks to turn over. In fact, if you think you're just going to turn over a regular rock and you're just going to find it on your own, well, you don't know that when you turn over that rock, there's another regular rock behind it. So, and there's 20 rocks behind that, 20 stones that look normal. So sometimes God will have you open a rock and you're like, that looked normal. Oh, it's here. And then you see another normal rock that doesn't look like anything. And he'll ask you to keep digging way down into a place where you think, this is foolish. I've opened 20 rocks, 20 stones. I just keep pulling them out, and behind that is just regular rocks behind it. And he's way down deep. The last stone that looks normal, there's huge treasure down there. So this proves that you're not going to be able to do this without God. Even if you find the stone, the area, he has put so many stones in front of it, you'll give up before you even reach a quarter of the way through. You'll give up and think there's no treasure there. Now, this is God's treasure map. This is what you're going to experience. I would rewatch this video a bunch of times. Not because I care about subscribers and likes and views. You know, I want people to be touched. But what I'm saying is, I'm going to rewatch this video because I need to be reminded about what God thinks about treasure maps. So that the next time I come across something that looks normal and God's saying, you need to dig there, I need to remember and start digging and stay there for 5 years if I have to. I need to dig and dig and dig and dig and keep going until I see something shiny down there. And through that, my relationship with God will get even better. And that's what we want for you. You need to be able to do that. And the last thing I'll say about God's treasure map is it's not even about what you get. It's about, first, the person who made the map. You get to see how wonderful and how awesome and how wise, how much he loves us. How much while you're digging, he'll actually protect you from snakes in the rocks. We didn't even talk about that. He'll let a snake bite you, a rattlesnake, after the third stone in that place. And you're holding the rattlesnake, and it's just dangling from your hand. And you'll just shake it off and keep going. This is our God. So the biggest treasure is getting to know him through the process. This is God's treasure map. Time to hunt for treasure. Hail Jehovah.